Welcome to the show. Today we're diving into some seriously fascinating documents you sent our way. We're talking about a sealed indictment from the U.S. District Court of New York centered around Eric Adams's 2021 mayoral campaign. The big question here, were there illegal campaign contributions made? And if so, how deep does this rabbit hole go?
What's captivating about this indictment is that it doesn't just focus on the campaign itself. It suggests a pattern of potentially questionable behavior stretching all the way back to Adams' time as Brooklyn Borough president, which began in 2014.
You're right. It's like this indictment is piecing together a much larger puzzle. For example, it highlights Adams accepting luxury trips and other benefits from wealthy foreign business people. There's a lot of focus on connections to Turkey in particular. This is all happening even before his official mayoral campaign launch. So how does this connect to potential illegalities?
It's crucial to understand that campaign finance laws aren't just arbitrary rules. They are in place to safeguard the integrity of U.S. elections, ensuring no undue influence is exerted on the process. What the indictment lays out is this: alleged attempts to circumvent these laws, especially by using what are called straw donors. Imagine this. A wealthy individual wants to donate a large sum, say $10,000, to a campaign. However, the legal limit is much lower, maybe $2,000. To get around this, they might have employees each donate that smaller amount, effectively funneling a much larger illegal sum through these straw donors. And the indictment suggests this is what was happening in the Adams campaign.
That's a really clear way to explain it, thanks. So this is where it gets even juicier because New York City has this unique program called the Matching Funds Program. Can you explain how that ties into everything?
Absolutely. Think of the Matching Funds program as a way to empower everyday New Yorkers. It's designed to amplify the voices of ordinary citizens, not just wealthy donors. Here's how it works. For every small dollar contribution a candidate receives, the city matches it with public funds. This levels the playing field, giving candidates who might not have access to big money a fighting chance. But, and this is a big but, the indictment claims Adams's campaign exploited this system. They allegedly used these illegal straw donations to fraudulently claim matching funds, essentially getting a double bonus from illegally sourced money.
Hold on, so they were getting extra public funds, taxpayer money, based on illegal contributions. Wow. Just how much money are we talking about here?
The potential impact is substantial. For every illegal contribution, they could have received up to $2,000 in public funds. The indictment also alleges that the Adams campaign falsified compliance documents, using these illegal activities to present a squeaky clean image to the public.
That's a pretty shocking revelation. Speaking of connections, let's talk about these Turkish individuals mentioned in the indictment. It seems Adis had relationships with several influential figures in Turkey, including a Turkish official and a promoter. And these weren't just casual acquaintances, were they?
Not at all. The indictment suggests these connections go back years to 2015, even before Adams formally announced his candidacy for mayor. And it wasn't just friendly chats over tea and biscuits. These relationships appear to have resulted in significant perks for Adams, particularly when it came to travel. We're talking free, business-class flights, luxury hotel stays at heavily discounted rates, the works.
There's one detail that really jumped out at me. Adams' stay in the Bentley suite at the St. Regis Istanbul. This is a suite that normally costs a whopping $7,000 a night. And guess what Adams allegedly paid? Less than $600. I mean, come on, that's less than a tenth of the regular price.
And that's where we start to delve into the heart of the allegations. The indictment doesn't just stop at unreported gifts and benefits. It goes on to allege a quid pro quo, a you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours kind of deal. It claims that Adams leveraged his position to pressure the FDNY, the New York City Fire Department, into granting a TCO, that's a temporary certificate of occupancy, to a brand new 36-story Turkish consular building, even though there were concerns about fire safety.
So the indictment paints a picture of Adams potentially using his influence to return a favor for these luxurious perks he was receiving. But is there any evidence to suggest this wasn't just a friendly gesture?
The indictment actually quotes the Turkish official as stating it was Adams's turn to provide support, directly linking the favors to Adams' previous receipt of benefits. It goes on to describe how Adams personally intervened on behalf of the Turkish consulate, leading to the skyscraper's opening, despite the initial objections raised by the FDNY. This level of detail certainly adds weight to the allegations of a quid pro quo.
It's like something out of a political thriller. And the plot thickens, because this wasn't just a one-time thing. You've also got this table breaking down all the alleged benefits Adams received, and it's a pretty extensive list. We're talking multiple trips, upgrades to business class for flights to places like India and Hungary, even a planned trip to Ghana that ultimately got canceled. What stands out to you from this laundry list of perks?
What's glaringly absent is transparency. None of these benefits were reported on Adams's annual financial disclosure forms, which is a major red flag.
Huh.
These forms are designed to ensure transparency and hold public officials accountable. By omitting this information, it raises serious questions about what Adams was potentially trying to hide.
And let's not forget the sheer monetary value of these benefits. We're talking tens of thousands of dollars in free flights, luxury accommodations, even entertainment expenses, all while presenting an image of being a man of the people. It's a stark contrast.
Absolutely. The indictment really drives home the potential for financial incentives to influence political decisions. These weren't small, insignificant gestures, but substantial benefits with a clear monetary value attached to them. The fact that such significant perks weren't disclosed raises concerns about what may have been expected in return.
And it seems Adams's team went to great lengths to conceal these benefits. There's even mention of creating a fake paper trail to make it seem like he'd paid for some of this travel, when in reality, it was all complimentary. It's like they were trying to cover their tracks every step of the way.
That's right. The indictment describes how Adams allegedly instructed his scheduler to purchase flights using his credit card, and then later claimed to have reimbursed the expense with cash. However, the emails presented tell a different story, revealing inconsistencies and raising suspicions about the legitimacy of these transactions. This deliberate attempt to mislead and deceive, coupled with the alleged pressure on the FDNY, paints a concerning picture of potential corruption within Adams' administration.
This is all incredibly complex. We've got potential campaign finance violations with the straw donations, the intricate web of connections with Turkish individuals, and this alleged quid pro quo involving the FDNY. It's a lot to unpack. So where do we go from here? What does this all mean for Eric Adams' future?
Well, the indictment clearly outlines the charges against Adams and his alleged co-conspirators. However, it's crucial to remember that he is innocent until proven guilty. The legal process is complex, and it's too early to definitively predict the outcome.
You're right, this is just an indictment, not a conviction. But it definitely casts a shadow of doubt over his administration. And the timing of it all is quite interesting, wouldn't you say? We're talking about alleged misconduct during his 2021 campaign, yet this indictment drops right as he's preparing for his 2025 re-election campaign. It's like a bombshell dropping just before the big race.
The timing is indeed noteworthy and will likely have a significant impact on the upcoming election. This news will undoubtedly influence public perception and could even shape campaign strategies moving forward. The aftershocks of this indictment could reshape the entire political landscape, not just for Adams's campaign, but for the city as a whole.
It makes you wonder about the ripple effects this could have on other aspects of his administration, but let's zoom back in on the campaign itself. It wasn't just individuals with ties to Turkey involved in these alleged straw donations. The indictment also mentions instances of Adams seeking and accepting contributions from other sources, all carefully funneled through these straw donors to bypass those pesky campaign finance regulations. It seems like a blatant disregard for the rules.
It does, doesn't it? And what's even more concerning is that the indictment suggests this wasn't just a one-off for the 2021 election. There's evidence pointing to attempts to exploit the matching funds program for his 2025 re-election bid as well. This pattern of alleged misconduct extending beyond a single campaign raises serious questions about the overall integrity of his fundraising practices.
This whole situation really underscores the importance of having strong campaign finance regulations and, even more importantly, enforcing them rigorously. What's the point of having rules if they're so easily circumvented?
Precisely. Campaign finance laws are the bedrock of a fair and democratic electoral process. They are in place to prevent undue influence and ensure that elections are decided by the will of the people, not the size of someone's bank account. When these laws are flouted, it undermines the very foundation of our democracy.
It's like you said earlier, this case highlights the lengths to which some individuals and organizations will go to gain favor with those in power. The desire for access and influence can be a powerful motivator, and the potential for abuse is immense.
You're absolutely right. It emphasizes the importance of remaining vigilant and demanding transparency from our elected officials. We can't just assume they're playing by the rules. We need to hold their feet to the fire and demand accountability. This case also underscores the vital role investigative journalism and law enforcement play in exposing corruption and holding those in power accountable for their actions.
Speaking of investigations, I'm curious about what initially sparked this whole thing. The indictment lays out the charges and evidence, but it doesn't really delve into how this investigation even began. It's like we're missing the first chapter of the book.
That's a great question, and unfortunately the indictment leaves us in the dark on that front. We can only speculate at this point. Perhaps a brave whistleblower came forward with information, or maybe campaign finance watchdogs flagged some irregularities. It's a bit of a mystery.
It's like a real-life political thriller, and we're left on the edge of our seats wondering who tipped off the investigators and what other secrets might be lurking beneath the surface. But one thing's for sure, this indictment has already had a major impact.
Absolutely. This case serves as a stark reminder that even those in positions of authority are not above the law. While the legal process will ultimately determine Adam's fate, the court of public opinion is already in session.
You're right. It's a good reminder to stay engaged and informed no matter how convoluted things get. But let's shift gears for a moment. This indictment also sheds light on something else that's pretty fascinating: the attempts to obstruct the investigation. It's like a whole other layer of intrigue. We've got deleted messages, false statements, even accusations of coaching others to lie to federal agents.
The indictment details how, upon learning about the federal investigation, Adams and his associates allegedly engaged in a coordinated effort to conceal their activities. This includes instances of Adams supposedly instructing his staff to delete messages and providing false information to investigators.
And it's not just Adams. The indictment points to attempts by several individuals connected to the alleged scheme to mislead investigators, including the Turkish official and a wealthy Turkish businessman referred to as Businessman 5.
These allegations of obstruction are particularly troubling because they suggest a deliberate attempt to undermine the justice system.
It certainly adds to the drama of the whole situation. So we've got potential campaign finance violations, a possible quid pro quo, and alleged attempts to obstruct the investigation. What's the bottom line here? What's next for Eric Adams?
Well, the indictment lays out the charges, and now it's up to the legal process to run its course. Adams will have the opportunity to defend himself against these allegations in court. The burden of proof lies with the prosecution, and a jury will ultimately decide his fate.
It's like a legal thriller unfolding in real time. We'll all be watching to see how this case develops.
This case raises crucial questions about campaign finance, ethics, and the balance of power. It's a potent reminder of the importance of transparency, accountability, and the rule of law in a democratic society.
Well, you've certainly given me and our listener a lot to think about. This deep dive into Eric Adams' campaign finance has been a real eye-opener. It's a story full of twists and turns, and it's far from over.
The indictment itself, with its meticulous detail and surprising revelations, provides a compelling glimpse into the world of political fundraising and the lengths individuals may go to secure power and influence. It underscores the importance of critical thinking, asking tough questions, and remaining informed about the actions of those who govern us.
This deep dive has been a masterclass in navigating complex legal documents and political intrigue. You've made sense of a dense and often confusing topic, and I think our listener is walking away with a much clearer understanding of this whole saga.
It's a reminder that the pursuit of knowledge is an ongoing process, and there's always more to learn. We should approach information with a healthy dose of skepticism, seeking multiple perspectives, and being willing to question our assumptions.
Well said. And on that note, we'll leave our listener with one final thought to ponder. If these allegations are true, what does this say about the broader culture of political fundraising? Is this an isolated incident, or does it point to a systemic problem? Something to think about as we continue to follow this unfolding story.